Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues and everyone. A warm welcome to you to today's webinar on the questions and answers related to the online reporting tool for the 7th National Report. My name is Alexis Legigan, and I work as a technical officer at the United Nations Development Programme, and I'm pleased to open today's session. So building on the introductory webinars that we held over the past few months, including the one that we had in December of last year, today's session is dedicated to addressing the remaining questions that you may have on the national reporting and on how to work effectively with the online reporting tool. So we do hope that this session will help you move forward confidently with the preparation and also the submissions of your reports. So just a reminder that today's webinar is being organized jointly by the CBD Secretariat, UNDP, and UNEP with the financial support from the GEF. And it's also part of the capacity building support that is provided under GEF-8 Umbrella Programme to support NBSAP updates and the 7th National Reports. So once again, thank you to all of you for taking the time to join us today. We can move to the next slide for a few important house rules for today. So as you know, simultaneous interpretation is available in French and Spanish. And as always, thank you very much to our interpreters for being with us today and throughout the series. So as you know, to activate the interpretation, you just have to click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen to select your language. And if you want to follow the English session, we do advise you to select the English channel as well. Just a reminder to all of the speakers and participants to speak slowly when taking the floor, just to facilitate the work of our interpreters. And one more thing, if you do experience technical difficulties during the session, please do send a message to my colleague, Angélique Oguena, who will be able to assist you. And also do note that this webinar is being recorded and that we will be sharing the recordings with you by email after the session. So on your screen now, you can see today's agenda, which is intentionally very straightforward. So after the short opening that I will do, we will move directly into the questions raised during the previous webinar and then open the floor to any additional questions. So this part will be moderated by my colleague Kieran Mooney from the CBD Secretariat. And then we will conclude the webinar with a few final reflections, followed by a brief overview of the key dates, timelines, and the available resources, which will be shared by my colleague Anthony Camayu from UNEP, who will support us with the closing of the session. I would just like to highlight that this session is a very good opportunity to clarify any remaining uncertainties ahead of the 7th National Report submission deadline in February of this year. And so we strongly encourage you to participate either by writing your questions in the chat or by using the raised hand function. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that our team compiled the questions and answer document based on the previous session we had in December. This document was shared with all of you ahead of the session, but I will ask my colleague Angélique if it's possible to reshare that document in the chat again, so that you can refer to it either during the session or after the session. On the next slide, if possible. So as you know, just a quick reminder, but the 7th National Reports are the primary source of information for the global review of collective progress in implementing the GBF. And so the session is meant to support you in this work. And the objectives of the sessions are the following. So as I mentioned, to ask any questions, to share any challenges or technical issues you may be experiencing with the online reporting tool, and also learn from common questions and solutions raised by other countries, and lastly, to gain any practical tips to ensure that your data is complete, validated, and ready for submission. So with that, I think we'll move to the core of today's session, and it's my pleasure to introduce Kiran Muni, who is the Program Management Officer at the CBD, who will guide us through the most frequent questions and other practical issues related to the reporting tool. So Kiran, thanks so much, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Alexi, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. So as Alexi mentioned, we've been collectively as a sort of a team supporting the national reporting process, been organizing a series of webinars throughout the end of last year and now into this year. This session today really takes off from our last webinar, which was in December. We received a number of questions that we just didn't have time to answer in that session. So what I'm going to briefly do is just provide a sort of a quick summary of those sort of common unaddressed questions that we didn't get to after our last session, and then really turn the floor over to everyone on the call today. If you have any other questions about the online reporting tool, what its functionality, just questions about national reporting in general, please do let us know either in the chat or by raising your hand, and we'll try to address them here. If they're, perhaps of a more technical or very sort of specific situation to your country, we can also, have bilateral discussions after the fact. So I think, on reflection of the session that we had in December, the types of questions that we received really centered around sort of four general clusters of issues. One was around national target setting. One was around the use of indicators in national reporting. The other was around data and what data should we use. And then there was also some just more general open-ended questions about the online reporting tool. I just saw a question in the chat about having a recording of the December session. Yes, that is available, and perhaps one of my colleagues can put it in the chat. All of the sessions that we've had, the training sessions on the online reporting tool, are available. So if perhaps you're just getting started with the online reporting process and you're a bit sort of overwhelmed or lost in the process, those are really good resources because they really do walk everyone sort of step by step through that process. Today's session is really focused on answering questions that everyone here might have. So with regards to the sort of first cluster of issues around national targets, I want to start off by sort of emphasizing that this round of national reporting is very much based on the national targets that countries have set. So before you start the national reporting process, it's really important that you go back and have a look at what national targets your country has entered already. If your country hasn't entered national targets, then think about doing so. Because of the way the template, because the template that was agreed by the Conference of the Parties is based around national targets, it's really important that there is at least one national target record in the online reporting tool in order for the reporting process to go forward. I'm sorry, could somebody just mute their microphone? Thank you. Yeah, so now I should clarify that it's not necessary that you have, and I know for some countries they're not going to be adopting national targets. In those cases, you don't have, you still need something in the online reporting tool that is a sort of equal to a national target record, but how that's phrased and how it's expressed is really up to you. So if your country's in a situation where they're not going to be setting national targets, you could enter something that's fairly general that essentially just unlocks the rest of the reporting process. This is a bit of a technical issue, so if anybody has any specific questions because their country is not setting national targets, it's perhaps best if you contact us directly and we can have a conversation about that. With regards to the national targets, it doesn't matter because the national reporting structure is based around national targets. If your country has submitted 3 or 4 national targets that are mapped to one GBF target, that's completely fine. It doesn't affect anything really. All the reporting is done against the national targets. Similarly, if your country has set one national target that is mapped to multiple GBF targets, that's also fine. The system accounts for that, and it makes the necessary connections. So really, just I wanted to emphasize that the first key step in the national reporting process is to make sure that your country's has something in the national target submissions in order to unlock the rest of the reporting system. Similarly, if your country is planning on using national indicators in its national reporting process, it's important that those national indicators are identified with the national target that you've submitted, because once the national target is there and the national indicators are there, the rest of the reporting template populates. So the national reporting template is quite dynamic because it is based on national target submissions. With regards to indicators, so there's been quite a number of questions about indicators and what do we do if we don't have data for the indicators. So essentially, the online reporting tool the template that COP agreed foresaw 4 possible responses to the indicators. One is that you submit you provide information for the indicators using your own national data. The second option is perhaps your country doesn't have a good national data set and you wish to use global data. So that's fine. And we've enabled some functionality to pull in some data sets that are available globally. And then the last 2 options are your country doesn't have national data, or your country doesn't feel that that headline indicator or binary indicator is relevant to their national circumstances. In these last 2 cases, you would just need to say, in the case of we don't have data, you would select we do not have data, and then you would be asked to provide a bit of a description as to what the situation or the challenge is in the country. Similarly, if your country just sees that one of the headline indicators is not relevant to them, you would select that option, and then you would provide a bit of an explanation. So basically, all parties are being asked to say something about each one of the headline indicators, but what you decide to say could be simply, we do not have data, or this indicator is not relevant. This is really important because, as you may know, the Conference of the Parties has sort of established a bit of a review process. So one thing that we have to do with the Secretariat after the submission of the national reports is go through and do an analysis of the use of the headline indicators and the binary indicators and provide that information back to the Conference of the Parties. So I just want to clarify that, even if you don't have data, there is still something that should be said about each of the headline indicators. That just might be, we don't have data, and then providing a bit of an explanation. With regards to the use of national indicators, yes, I mean, that's completely foreseen and allowed throughout the national reporting process. It's just important that the national indicators be identified and included along with the national target submission, so all the connections can be made in the online reporting tool. And then generally, I should emphasize that the indicators that the COP agreed to are, while they're a core part of the national reporting template, they're not intended to be limiting. So they're not intended to stop a country or prevent a country from using their own national data sets or their own national indicators that may be really relevant for their national processes. The headline indicators, the binary indicators, really are just there to provide that core element that would be somewhat common across all the parties, so that we are able, in the global review process, have a bit of a collective vision or overview of what the progress has been made in implementation. On the national indicators, there's also been questions about, do we have to enter the data multiple times if an indicator is reused in multiple places? And the answer there is no. So you only have to enter the indicator information once. And then by virtue of your national targets that you've submitted and all the mapping that's done with that information will automatically appear everywhere it's relevant in Section 3 of the national report. So you only need to enter the indicator information once. With regards to Section 4, which is looking at progress towards the global goals, the headline and binary indicators that are relevant will automatically be brought in. If your country has identified component and complementary indicators in their national target submission, those will also be brought in. However, the national target indicator information won't, and that's because Section 4 is really meant to be about progress towards the global goal, so it was felt that the national data might not be that relevant for that. However, if you do wish to make reference to a national indicator in Section 4, you can do a number of different ways. There's lots of free text fields in that section, so you can include some information referring back to the previous section of the national report. You can include whatever narrative text you want. You can also include additional attachments. So if you really feel strongly that you should have additional national indicator information in Section 4, you can include an attachment to do that. So then with regards to data and actually filling out the indicator template, I think I'm going to just share my screen because there's been a fair number of questions on this issue. So so what I'm showing now, and I'll just maybe Alexi, let me know if you can't see it. This is what the template looks like for submitting an indicator, the indicator information. This is just a very simple form. It's in this case, it's automatically set up for indicator 2.1. So you have in column A, you have the indicator number. In column B, you have the name of the indicator. And then the first thing you're going to be asked is, does this data that you're entering represent a disaggregation? And if the answer is no, you can leave it blank. If it is a disaggregation, you would say yes. And then you would be asked to define what type of disaggregation it is. There's different options, but really it's up to you. There's actually what the disaggregation itself is. There's the year that the data has been submitted. There's the unit, so the year could be 2025. The unit could be kilometers squared. You would enter the value, and then you would just repeat that for every year. So I'll do this assuming it was so this is just one example. So this would be what it would look like for a disaggregation. If it wasn't a disaggregation and you can use the exact same form to do that, you would just say no, and then it would be not applicable. And then the year would be 2025, kilometers squared, and whatever the value would be. So that's really that's really it for how that whole template works. It's essentially the same template for all of the indicators. So it's the same type of form, and really we're asking the information that's requested is quite simple or straightforward. It's really just, is this a disaggregation? Yes, no. If it's a disaggregation, please let us know what type of disaggregation it is, what the year the data is from, the unit, and the value, and that's repeated. That's repeated multiple times. Then there's also been a number of questions about using, what do we do in situations where we have data that doesn't quite match what's in the metadata for the indicators? And there, I think there are a number of different options. If you have very similar data to what's being asked in the metadata, you could consider using it as proxy data. You could consider entering it as a disaggregation. So as an example, if we take the indicator looking at pesticides, so 7.2, perhaps you don't have data for all pesticides that are being used in a country. Maybe it's just for a subset, and that's completely fine. You could use that as a disaggregation. There's also an option of just, if you're not quite sure, submitting it as a national indicator. So maybe using this pesticide example, maybe you don't have data that's really about applied toxicity in pesticides, but you have really relevant information on, water quality as a result of chemical loads or something like that. Then you could include that, but perhaps in that case, you'd want to include it as a national indicator. So I would say, like, if you have information and you have data that you want to share, again, the whole setup of the online reporting tool is not intended to be limiting. It's really, if you have data that you feel is relevant for your national report, and ultimately these are national records, it would be really important to include that information and find a way. And we'd be happy to have sort of bilaterals with anyone who might have some more specific questions about that. Yeah, so then maybe just there were then a couple of sort of general questions about the online reporting tool that came up throughout the last webinar. So I'll go quickly over those. A question about word counts. A couple of colleagues asked, are we limited in sort of how many words we can use? No, the fields are quite open. You can, there's no word count basically. So you can write what you need to write and what's important to your country. Is there a limit to the number of people that can use the online reporting tool? Again, no, it's really up to the country to decide who will have access and what their roles will be. And so if you can have as many people as you want being able to log in and use the tool, just bear in mind that the more people that are entering and using the tool, maybe the more complicated it will get on your side to manage all those relationships. But really, it's quite open and flexible. The national reports can be submitted in any of the official languages of the United Nations, so there's no issue there. Colleagues were asking, can we use our French or Arabic or Spanish? But there's no problem with that. There are a number of colleagues asking about what time period should be covered in the national reports. So generally, what we've been suggesting is that the national reports cover the period since the submission of the last national report. So try and cover from the time from the sixth national report till now. Given the focus is heavily, given that one of the main intended uses of the online report of the national reports is going to be on preparing this global review of progress, the period from 2022, so from the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework until now would be particularly important to try and cover in your national reports if possible. A number of parties have also asked, is it possible to provide updates to the national report once it's been submitted? That is possible. What we would suggest is that if you're intending to update any information, to note that itself in the report. And if you're including draft information, to include that and make that very clear, so that once the information is online and visible, people reading it will know, okay, this is a draft and it could be potentially updated later on. So I think I'll stop there with those questions. So these were sort of the general big overarching questions that we received at the end of the last webinar. As Alexi mentioned, they've largely been answered in a bit more detail in the document that was circulated and that's available. And I think now what we'll do is I'll stop my talking, but then we'll turn to some of the questions that are in the chat. And if anybody would like to ask a question, either put it in the chat or please feel free to raise your hand and someone will give you the floor and invite you to ask your question. So I'll stop there for now and I'll just take a couple of minutes. Oh, I see a hand from a colleague from Indonesia. So please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. For Indonesia, we do already start filling up the ORT, and for Chapter 3, we only have 6 headline indicators left to fill in based on the validation check. All other headline, binary, and the national indicators are already filled in. For some headline indicators, current data are not available, so we select it as not available and explain the situation in the text. However, the Chapter 3 progress bar is still very low. Out of the 42, actually, we only have 6 headline indicator, which is we don't have any data. So can you please just explain what is happening that one, because then we can continue for the submission, right? Thank you.
Yes. So first of all, it's great to hear that you've made such great progress with the national report. What you've described is exactly the approach that we would suggest. So if there are headline indicators where you just you do not have, either you don't have national data that's available, the global data that is available is perhaps not suitable, then yes, say no data and describe the situation. And I'm sure you're not going to be the only country that's in that situation. With regards to the progress bar, and I'll wait to be corrected by my colleague Blaise or Ray if I'm mistaken, but that progress bar isn't just with regards to the headline indicators, but with regards to the entire report. So I think the fact that you're seeing that progress bar hasn't quite filled up as much is just a fact or related to the fact that other sections of the national report themselves haven't been fully completed. It's not a commentary on anything else besides that. It's really just meant to be a visual cue to the colleagues that are working on the national reports about sort of how much volume of work or how many sections still need to be addressed.
Just to follow up your explanation, because all other chapters, I believe we already fill it up, the chapter 1, 2, and it's all the bar shows a fully bars sign. So what you are saying is that
could I just ask colleagues that if you're not speaking, if you could just make sure that you keep your microphone muted, just to so we can hear everyone and to facilitate interpretation. Please, colleague, go ahead.
Yeah, so you are saying that we should fill it up all the chapters before that the chapter 3, because at the current it's only chapter 3 which shows a small bar rather than as a full bars.
So I think perhaps what would be the best is with myself and my colleagues, we'll look at this situation offline and get back to you, because it's a bit difficult without actually having your report open in front of me to tell you what's sort of what the situation is or what's happening. But from what you just yes, so yeah, please go ahead, Ray. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the progress bar does try to give you an idea. It's not 100% progress, because the 7 national reports it's a big report, and it includes a lot of different information that are spreaded out. Like we have indicator data, then we have like 5 different types of indicator data, and then the section 3, for example, has like repetition of all your national targets. So it's quite complex. So the system tries to give you an idea where you are at, but it may not really reflect the actual progress. But we're trying to provide more and better progress, so like it kind of matches the information that you have entered. Because it's a little complicated, because you might enter just one word in one of the text box, but it really doesn't mean that you have actually entered the information. So it kind of becomes a little complex to give a real progress. But we try to like give you like an highlight of where you are at. But we're trying to improve the progress bar as much as possible, and we'll try to add some improvement to that progress in coming days.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, my colleague Prani, because she's who is responsible for filling up the OLRP. Prani, can you just add something? Perhaps there's something need to be clarified. Prani from Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Gono. So for chapter 3 itself, we already have 200 pages, so it's a lot. But the progress bar still, I think, below 10%. So we don't know why, because after I tried to click the validation, it only shows that we only need to fill 6 more headline indicators. So we don't really know the issue there. Thank you.
Okay, we will check into your information, and we'll get back to you separately, and we'll let you know if there's any issue in calculating the progress for your report. We'll check that out.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's not only for the section 3, it's also for section 4. So the progress bar is still same, like it's below 10% or something for chapter 3 and chapter 4, but for the rest, it's already completed.
Okay,
Yeah.
we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in a moment, I'll turn to our colleague Lillian for her question, but just to respond to a question that's come up in the chat. So a colleague asked in the screen I showed earlier with the online the Excel file for submitting national indicators, there was some fields that were already pre-populated. So in the online reporting tool, there's for several of the indicators, there's two templates. There's a very simplified template where it doesn't have any information pre-populated, and then there's a more detailed template where the disaggregations and the associated keywords that the Conference of the Parties agreed in COP16 have been included and pre-populated. These are the sort of more detailed template is provided really just to help simplify the reporting process for colleagues that may want to use those disaggregations that the Conference of the Parties identified. And that was the form that I was showing. So it really just, it had some terms pre-populated to facilitate reporting. However, there's no obligation at all to use that more detailed form. It was just something we provided because we thought it might be helpful for countries to already have those lists of terms available. And that was the one that I was showing. Okay, Lillian, over to you for your question, please.
Thank you very much. And also just want to appreciate the effort that you have done to respond to the questions that we had previously. Unfortunately, I didn't attend, but it's good that with this meeting, I'm able to follow up. So I just want to refer to the response which you indicated that there is room for parties to update the information provided after submission. And now my question is, because these reports are going to be used to inform the global review, are you going to use the data which is in the draft, or whenever the submission has been made, then you also refer back to the global review? So I'm just wondering whether the revised information will also be reflected in the global review, or whether it will just be based on the draft. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question, and thank you for bringing it up because I don't think I sort of provided a fulsome enough answer. So you're right. The national reports are the key source of information for the global review process. For that reason, that's why that deadline of the end of February is really important, because if we we have to use that deadline as a cutoff for ourselves in the Secretariat for preparing the global review, which is like the global report. So we at the Secretariat will be able to only use information that we receive by the 28th of February in that global report, because it's quite a time-consuming process to prepare that. So that's why it's really important, if you want to make sure that your sort of national realities and experiences and circumstances sort of feed into that global review process, that we have as much information as possible by the end of by the reporting deadline. So we will at the Secretariat use any information that's published in the online reporting tool by 20th of February when preparing the global report. However, the national reports themselves are also meant to be an input to the global review process, which will take place at COP17. So while the information that comes after that 28th of February deadline, we might not be able to, or likely won't be able to include it in the global report, it would still be really important, I think, to have that information available for the review process, which is more of a party-led process that will take place in Armenia. So there's kind of two different things. There's the global report, and for the global report, our deadline is really the 28th of February because of, we have to process the data and we have to write the report. But then information that comes after that would still be public, and it would still be accessible and could help to inform the discussions at the COP. Yeah, I hope that fully answers the question. I'm just seeing if there's other hands raised. I don't see any. I'm not sure, Raise or Blaze, if there's any questions that have come up in the chat that you would like to answer orally? I see that you're quite active in answering them directly in the chat.
Yes, there's one question from John Francois regarding the language of the indicator data. So currently, the indicator data Excel that will be uploaded currently only supports English. So all information that you enter in that Excel needs to be English, especially if the question does the data row represent disaggregation? You will have to answer that in English, either yes or no. The year, unit, and value can be in other UN languages, but that particular question has to be in English. And please do not modify the Excel because the system follows, the system requires the template as it is being downloaded. If you modify the Excel template, the system will not accept your uploaded file. So it's really important that you do not modify. What we are suggesting, if you need to modify the Excel, you can upload the data as the template, and then if you want to add additional information, you can modify the Excel and upload it in the comments field as an additional information. But if you want to upload data, please do not modify the Excel format. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Lauren had asked a similar question to the one that you had answered on the status of reporting, right? And whether by the February deadline, if we wanted to see a partial submission, right? Do you see that in the chat? I think it's
yes,
very
I do. Yeah, I was just about to answer that one. Okay. Yes, so our hope is that we really would like to have as much information from parties as possible to draw on when preparing the global report. So with that context, if a party has some information that's ready to be shared, but not the entire report, yes, please do publish it. And I would say it's better to publish some information than none at all, because then we have more information that we can work from. So it is possible to make a partial submission. We would just ask that when you make that submission, that in the submission itself, you note somewhere what the status of the information is. Is it draft information that's likely to be updated? Is it, you're only submitting the first, 1 or 2 or 3 sections of the national report, and the 4th will come later, just so that we can use that information correctly when preparing the global report. And then with regards to Lauren's first question, so she's asking if parties are expected to submit some indicator information when they submit national targets. So when they submit a national target, you don't have to submit the data for the indicator, but you do need to tell us tell the system what the national indicator or the indicators are that you're intending to use at that phase, because that sort of follows on through the rest of the reporting template. So I'm just looking through the chat to see if there's any questions that I've missed, but if I've missed anything, perhaps one of my colleagues on the call can help me. And also, please feel free, if you want to ask questions orally, to raise your hand, and we'll happily give you the floor.
I think we're all trying to scan the questions as they come. Karen, there's a question from Emmeline about the data which might be less than current than the global data. And the question is, which should be used for the national report?
Thanks, Ray. So the data that should be used is the data that is most relevant to your national circumstances, and which you feel fits more best what's happening nationally. So if there's more recent global data than national data, and your country is comfortable using that global data, then by all means, please do use that data. If, however, for whatever reason, you feel that the global data is not representative, but you have national data that's perhaps a bit more dated, that's also fine. I would, the national reporting process is a nationally owned, nationally relevant process. So I would say generally you should be guided by what will make a national report that is the most meaningful and relevant to you in your national circumstances. I see we have so Alexi, you have your hand up, and also we have Nirmali. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Maybe I'll just jump to Alexi first, if that's all right, just in case it's a technical issue, and then we'll go to Nirmali for her question.
Thanks, Kieran. No, not a technical issue. I'm seeing a question in French in the chat, so I can help with French. I think it's Mumuni who is asking if the CBD technical team is able to review the draft reports that they fill out while they await the publications.
So, I mean, so with regards to that question, I mean, if it would be helpful, we would happily to review any national report. You would just sort of need to explicitly sort of ask us to do that, because it's not something that we would just go and do automatically for everyone. But if there's parts of the national report that you would like us to look at, or myself or my colleagues, please do feel free to reach out, and that's something we're more than happy to do. Maybe I'll hand the floor over now to Nirmali, please.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Yes. I haven't pronounced that correctly.
No, you did pronounce my name very well. Thank you. Just a clarification, because I heard you say that all the data that is submitted by the 28th of February will be the only ones that will be used for the global review. But then again, I heard you say that if a country submits, say, a partial report or something, then obviously the country should have informed you prior. And then, once they submit whatever, the full report or whatever, maybe, complete that, then you would be able to use that data. Have I got this confused, or is it possible to, may I? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I can explain that in a bit more, and I think I might have made some mistakes in my wording. So there's two different processes. There's the global report, which will be a publication, similar to what like the GBO has done in the past. And that global report is one input to the global review process. The global review process is actually what the parties themselves will do at COP17, where the parties will take stock of the progress that has been made, and will develop whatever decisions it wishes to do. So for the preparation of the global report, which is a document, so it will be a document that we will issue and make available to relevant meetings. The deadline for information to be included in that report is the reporting deadline, so the end of February. However, the global review process goes and will end at COP17. So in that sense, if you don't submit information in time for it to be included in the global report, but you do submit your report before COP17, that information will still be available for parties and others to take into account in their deliberations at COP17. So yeah, just to make this distinction, there's a global report, and for there, we really do have a hard deadline of the end of February. And then there's the review processes, which is really what is the party-led sort of decision-making of the convention. So a report received after the deadline could still be taken into account and used in that, to the extent that parties want to bring in that information into the discussions.
Right. So thank you very much.
Okay, great. I'm glad.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm glad that clarified it.
Right. Thank you.
My pleasure. So we have a number of other questions that have come up. So maybe I'll turn now to Carolina for your question.
Hi, Kieran. Yes, I just wanted to share the questions that were raised, some of the ones that were raised in Spanish, in case they haven't been addressed yet. So there was a question saying that when the format, the pre-established format, is downloaded for the indicators, it is not being downloaded as a format that can be completed. as the one that you share at some point during the talk today. So they're asking if we should do it or complete it writing directly into the format.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Carolina. This is one of the questions that I tried to answer a bit earlier, but I'll repeat it because I think it's important. So in the online reporting tool, for about 5 of the indicators we have prepared to help facilitate the reporting process, a more detailed template that has the disaggregations that have been agreed by the Conference of the Parties for those headline indicators already pre-entered with the associated control terms. So that was what I was showing. For most indicators, because we don't have those controlled lists, so it's free text. So this more detailed template, it's entirely up to parties to use it or not, because the use of disaggregations in national reporting is voluntary. It's optional. So if you use the more detailed template, there are some pre-filled answers to help facilitate reporting. If you don't see those disaggregations that are relevant for you, you can just type in whatever text you want. So it's really intended to be flexible and enabling, as opposed to limiting in terms of the reporting process. So I see Lillian, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think my question was also related to the one you are just responding to, where you mentioned that we should not modify the Excel format because as it is going to be used for analysis of the information that will be provided by parties. Now my question is, there is a section, in section 3, when you are looking at the progress for implementation of the targets, there is an element where parties are requested to provide data, if available, in tabular form. That's in table format. So in our case, we tried to insert a table within that section. I think it should be number 6. We have inserted a sort of a table within that template. Is that modifying? Maybe we just have to understand so that we are going to submit uploading the information, the online template, it should not be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think so we have an Excel template, and what we mean by not modifying it, we mean not adding additional columns, essentially, because the way the online reporting tool will look, it will look at the data and it will say, does this match the format that's in essentially the database that sits behind the online reporting tool. And it's really important that those columns don't change, because then if they do, we're not able to bring in the information and aggregate it and summarize it. So by not changing it and by entering it in tabular format, essentially what is just meant is that, please fill out the columns in those fields in that Excel file. If you enter data in a different way, it is likely that the system will flag it as an error and will just ask you to re-enter it. That said, if you have data that's really not possible to present in that tabular format, you can include it as an attachment, and we will look at it. It's just we will not have the same ability to aggregate that information together with all of the other submissions. So we might, in the context of the global report, we might be limited in how we can actually use that information. I hope that answers your question, but it seems quite specific. So I'd be happy to have a bit of a bilateral after to go through that in more detail with you, if that would be helpful.
I think we really need to have a bilateral, so I can share with you like one of the targets, and then you can advise us accordingly. Thank you.
Yes, certainly that would be fine. You can. I believe my contact information was on one of the slides, and you can write to me directly, and we can look at that together. So I see we have a hand up from Ngombe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Please go ahead.
Yes, it's correct. I posed the question on the Excel reporting template, but I'm seeing something to say each template is pre-filled with the indicator. Is that the case? Once I log in, I can able to download it. Because like the reason I'm saying that is at the national level, I think we are responsible for the reporting, but we don't have access to the so that we can able to download. Maybe I will talk to my country ministry that is responsible for that, but that's why I was asking if we can able to have that.
Yeah, so I think it depends somewhat on which indicator you're using. So for some of the headline indicators, we through the target tracker, which is run by UNEP WCMC, we've enabled a direct connection to global databases, so global data can come in and be pre-populated for your country if your country wishes to use that information. So that information will be there, but it's for about 5 or 6 of the indicators, but it's really up to a country to decide if they want to use that or not. There is then just a very simple template where essentially you would need to manually enter, if you're using your national indicators or national data, where you would need to enter the different types of disaggregations that you're intending to use and fill out the form. Then there's also a more detailed Excel file that is available for some of the indicators that has some predefined terms based on what the Conference of the Parties has agreed. So those are kind of the 3 options, and it's really up to the country to decide which approach they would like to take in that reporting process. But again, I'd be happy to have a bilateral with you so I can better understand the situation that you're facing. Maybe I'll just turn quickly to a couple of questions in the chat. So there's a question about, if I'm understanding it correctly, about national indicators not appearing in the report format. And as I mentioned earlier at the very start, in order for national indicators to appear correctly throughout the national report template, it's really important that those national indicators be included with the national target itself, because if it's not with the national target, then it won't appear. So if you have national indicators and you'd like them to appear in the report, it's really important that they be included with the target submission. And you can go back at any time and edit the targets. So even if you've already submitted targets, you can go back and edit them and update them as much as you wish. There's also a question about, will the global report include a breakdown of the number of parties that have submitted reports? Most likely, if it's not in the national report itself, it would be in some of the associated documents. So that information would be accessible and visible to everyone. It would also be accessible and visible directly through the online reporting tool itself. So the online reporting tool, if you've looked at it for the national targets, it has a map. And if your country has submitted national targets, your country is shaded a color. So that information will be important. And it will, I expect, be an important consideration in the global review that the Conference of the Parties will undertake. I'm just scanning quickly the questions in the chat. I think, but I stand to be corrected, I think we might have answered everything that's there. I'm just looking quickly. I'm not sure, colleagues, have I missed any questions that we should try and answer, or are there any more hands raised? I don't see any hands. Okay, maybe I'll just do one last quick. If any colleagues on the call have other questions they would like to ask, please raise your hands or put them in the chat. And if not, we'll move towards sort of ending the webinar. Leah, please go ahead.
Yeah, apologies for the last minute question. I'm sorry, there's kind of a double sound that I'm hearing, but I'm just wondering if you could potentially just share your screen one more time to show where we or countries can download those Excel files that pertain to each of the indicators. I just want to clarify about that if possible.
Sure. Blaise, do you happen to have that open?
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot.
Yes, I can do that. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Do that.
Blaise, would you mind sharing that if you can?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Can you confirm if you see my screen?
Yeah, we can confirm. So as I mentioned, so this is for indicator A3, or was for A3 on the red list. And you see at the very top, you have the 4 options. So using national data, global data, no data, not relevant. If, as Blaise has shown, if you use national data, there's the pre-filled template, which is the first link. And if you click on that, you get the simplified version of the Excel file. So very simply, just the indicator code, the indicator name, then does it represent a disaggregation? You would say yes or no. And if it was yes for a disaggregation, you would say what type of disaggregation it was, the year, the unit, the value, and any associated footnotes. So that's the really sort of simple form. Maybe, Blaise, we can show the more detailed one just for a second. So further down below, there's the optional form, which has, as I said, some terms pre-filled just to facilitate the reporting process. And as you can see, it looks essentially the same, except that for the disaggregation type, we've included a controlled list of terms based on what was agreed in the COP16 decision. And again, this is really optional. It's just there to facilitate reporting if that's helpful to parties. So that's where the templates can be found.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I see.
Karen and Blaise, while you add that, I do see the question from Ahmed about how they report on the national indicators, and so maybe go to the national indicator part of the ORT in order to submit that. Well, in the reporting part, that would be in the indicator tab, right? Just to show where the declared national indicators would be provided.
Like if you go to the indicator data section, the system displays all the 4 indicators that are linked with your national targets, and then the other national indicator. This is where all your country's national indicators will be listed. And then the process is exactly the same. You click on edit or add data. It will open the same screen. You use national data set, for example. You get the same option to download the pre-filled Excel. Once you click on the pre-filled Excel, the system will download an Excel file pre-populated with the information for your national indicator. So in this case, we have indicator brown list. This is my national indicator, and it's pre-filled for a few years. You can enter your information and then go back and upload the information by choosing the file, and then the system will accept the information. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Blaise. I see we have a hand up from Farida. Please go ahead. Farida, did you have a question you'd like to ask? I see that your hand is up.
Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez, s'il vous plaît?
Oui.
Je voulais poser une question par rapport à l'indicateur 7.1. Par rapport aux données, quand on n'a pas c'est-à-dire l'information.
When we don't have the information, can we use the proxy data compared to for instance, if I take one indicator and if we don't have enough information, can we use the national proxy indicator?
Thank you very much. Yes, so I mentioned earlier in the call, and it's also written in a bit more detail actually on this specific example in the document that Alexei and his colleagues shared. There is no problem with using proxy data for certain indicators or disaggregations. I think the issue is that whether you use proxy data or whether you use that data as an entirely sort of new national indicator really will depend on how closely the data matches what's been identified in the metadata. So if the proxy information is really quite close to what the Conference of the Parties took note of in the metadata for the indicators, then I would say, yes, please do use proxy data. If the proxy data really is quite a bit more removed from what's in the metadata, consider using that information as a national indicator. So I think it's a bit difficult to sort of talk in, without getting into like the real details. So I'd be happy to have a parallel call or a parallel conversation. But yes, I mean, generally there is no issue with using proxy data. It's just a question of whether you use that data in context of the headline indicator or in the context of a national indicator. And regardless if you're using proxy data, we would ask that in the footnote column, you just explain that so that when we're preparing the global report, we can take any nuances involving the data into account. So I see a question also in the chat now from Jean-François about the use of indicators, headline indicators appearing multiple times throughout the national report. So as I mentioned earlier, you only have to enter the indicator information once. And once that indicator information has been entered, it automatically is pre-populated everywhere in the national report where it is relevant. So as long as your mapping of your national targets and the indicators is accurate and is how you would like it, you don't need to worry about making all those connections. The online reporting tool will automatically do that for you, and you only need to enter the indicator information one time. Sorry, I'm just taking a quick look at the chat again.
Karen, there's a question about section 4 from Kumar about whether it should only be filled by the 4 goals or the 23 GBF targets. And section 4 is the correlation to section 3, which maps to the GBF goals and targets, right?
Yeah, so section 4 really is focused on the goals. So the national targets and the GBF targets would come up in section 3, and section 4 is really focused on the goals themselves. So I hope that answers the question. There's also a question about having, what do we in a situation where our national targets have already been published. There's no problem to go back and change those and to update them and to correct them. A number of countries have approached us already saying that they want to make some modifications to their national targets in light of sort of their national experiences since the targets were submitted. That's completely fine. It's at a country's discretion to do that. I would just say that if you're planning on doing that, it would be good to make any changes or modifications prior to starting the national reporting process, just because the entire national report structure, flows from those national targets. So if your national targets are not completely, how you want them to be, it would be good to correct those before really getting into the national reporting process, just to ensure that the rest of the reporting process moves smoothly. And then with regards to publishing, so I think there's a sort of, in that question about national target setting, there was a number of questions. So the person who has the right, I mean, actually, maybe Blaise, would you want to say something sort of about publishing authority? So I believe the question is who has the authority to publish, and I mean, basically it's the national focal point or whoever that national focal point has designated. So, but I'm not sure, Blaise, if you'd want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, the national focal point has the final authority to approve the changes, or if they have designated a publishing authority, he will also have the final approval to publish the information. So if there are any modifications, they need to go through the national focal point before they can be published and then be utilized or populated in the 7th national report. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can have as many users of the online reporting tool as you would like, but there's ultimately sort of one publishing authority that sort of has to click the final button and says this report is official and we are submitting it. So I'm just looking, I think that's all of the questions that I don't see any others, and I don't see any hands up. So maybe just to conclude, thank you very much for all the questions. We've really appreciated it. We hope that we've been able to answer everything. If there's issues that are, as I mentioned on a number of occasions, if there are issues that are really specific and would require some more perhaps direct one-on-one conversations, please do feel free to reach out to myself or any of my colleagues at the CBD or UNDP or UNEP. We're all really here to help support the national reporting process. So yeah, if you encounter any challenges, please let us know and we'll work with you as best we can to try and find solutions and ways to address those. So I'll stop there, and I think I'm handing off to Anthony now, if I'm correct.
That's correct, Kieran, and that's correct, Kieran, and thank you so much for that useful presentation. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Sorry, colleagues, I should be, yeah. Thanks, Kieran, for leading us through this useful and practical session on the online reporting tool for the 7th national report. My name, colleagues, is Anthony Kamau, and I will briefly share some few reflections and takeaways before we conclude. We've had a lot about the national targets, information on how to submit your national targets in the online reporting tool, and of course the national report, where the kind of data that is required for your submissions, for submitting your national report, as well as information around indicators and what kind of indicators you could use for your reports. It's important to emphasize that to prepare your national report, I think, as we had, it's useful that you have at least one national target available or submitted through the online reporting tool so that you can prepare your national report. Also, we've also been told that the national reports are primary information sources for the global report or the global assessment report, and therefore it's important that by the deadline, that's of 28th February of 2026, that you submit your national reports to be to participate or to be your national report to be factored in the global assessment or global report. Let me also highlight a few key messages and next steps. As you know, Decision 1632 requests countries to report on progress on implementing the KMGBF, including progress towards the national targets, NBSAPs, and the use of headline indicators of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, monitoring framework. It is crucial that relevant stakeholders be involved in the preparation of the national report and may include in their contributions to the preparation of national targets, NBSAPs, and of course the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Contributions from non-state actors should, where possible, be clearly identified. Also, reports are to be prepared using the standard template and indicators and submitted through the online reporting tool with the COP issued deadline of 28th February 2026, and for the 8th national report that are due 30th of June 2029. Looking ahead, it is important to note some key CBD meetings taking place in this year, 2026, where information on the 7th national reports will be critical. First is the upcoming 6th meeting of the subsidiary body on implementation that's happening between 16th to 19th February 2026 in Rome, in Italy. The second is the 27th meeting of the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice, that's SABSTAR, that will be happening between 27th July to 1st of August 2026 in Nairobi, Kenya. The other important meeting to note is the 7th meeting of the subsidiary body on implementation that will take place between 4th to 12th of August in Nairobi. And then, of course, the 17th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity that will happen between 19th to 30th October of 2026 in Yerevan, Armenia. A range of helpful guidance, materials, and resources are already available on the 7th National Report page of the CBD website. And to make access easier, my colleague Anjali is sharing these links on the chat. So please look out for those. With that, we have finally reached the end of today's session. I'd like to sincerely thank all of you for your active participation and engagement in today's webinar. Thanks to the many questions, we hope the panel managed to respond to as many questions as possible. I'd also like to thank the GEF for its financial support and to our partners from the CBD Secretariat and UNDP for their collaboration in making this session possible. As you endeavor to prepare your 7th national report, I hope you see the GEF-8 Umbrella Programme for NBSAP's update and 7th national report as a key resource to support your planning and reporting goals. We are also very pleased to share that another training session focused specifically on reporting non-state actor commitments in the online reporting tool is planned for 21st of January, and further information will be shared in the coming days. As a reminder, all webinar recordings, including today's, will be available on the webinar webpage, which is being shared in the chat. We will also follow up with you on additional information by email. Finally, when you leave the session, you will receive a short 1-minute survey. We would greatly appreciate your feedback as it helps us continue to improve the quality and the relevance of these webinars. Thank you once again for joining us today. We look forward to continuing to work with you, and we wish you every success with your 7th national reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.